Community Viewpoint.
And welcome to Community Viewpoint. Once again, I'm John Pawlak, your host for this edition of Community Viewpoint. And we're getting close to Christmas, so Merry Christmas, folks. It's cold in here, so that's why I kept my jacket on today, too. Getting old, so what the heck. We're here with Brett Wagner from the Department of Planning, and he is the director for that department. Brett will be talking to us about an issue that's come up. It's reared its ugly head once again. It's the dust issue. I have been around for almost too many years. 1999, I came here. I've been on one of the advisory committees that was involved with the dust issue early on, when we had a memorandum of understanding with the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection, Air Quality Department. And the reason why we had an MOU was, let me read to you the paragraph, because the quantity of the fine particles of the dust became an issue for Pahrump in the early 2000s, leading to state and federal authorities' involvement in local control of the situation. The actions taken then, including limiting vehicle access, watering, revegetation, dust control plans, and more, helped to bring the valley back into compliance with the National Ambient Air Quality Standard by 2009 that we were able to do with a memorandum of understanding. Now, we're not to that point now, but we've been told that we are pushing the issue, so to speak. And Brett is going to be telling us what he knows about that, why you're involved once again, and what we can do to alleviate this problem. So there you go.
Great. Just recently, I've been meeting with NDEP up in Carson City. Mm-hmm. They had informed me that we're not quite to the point that we were back in 2003 to 2009, mm-hmm. But we are starting to see a lot more exceedances. What an exceedance is exceedance of particulate matter in a 24-hour period. Mm-hmm. We have several monitoring stations around the valley that monitors the air quality. They take 24-hour readings. When we get an exceedance, that indicates a problem. The good news is that it doesn't seem to be a valley-wide issue yet at this point, but there is a couple of areas around town that have more exceedances than others.
And where are those at?
Those are actually two different locations. One of them would be at the old Willow Creek Golf Course,
which would be the Great Basin Waste Treatment Plant area.
Yes, it is within the fenced area of the Great Basin Treatment Facility, which, with all the,
there is no vegetation left, unfortunately. There used to be a green, lush area, but when they up and left with the golf course, all that's left is the dry desert, basically.
Right.
Yes.
And one big issue out there is there's a lot of ATV activity out on that property, because it is a nice place to ride. It's a nice wide open area.
And that's where we're trying to construct a Discovery Park in areas. In a small section with the Audubon Society, that is rather nice looking. There's a couple of small ponds there, a lot of trees that are revegetating themselves, but it'll take a lot for an 18-hole golf course to come back to life. So
for sure.
Yeah. And what else?
The other area that we get the most high reads is at the Mance School, the old Mance School, by the district school office there.
Yes.
A lot of that we do attribute to a lot of the vacant property around there. There's the old Binion Ranch, which is another, big barren piece of dirt now.
Is that the one that's on the campus of the Nye Communities Coalition?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, because when I was working there, the ladies would come down to change filters, and yes, I know exactly where that one is, yes. Right. And there's one that up on the north east side that we call the Harley Culkins
Yes,
area.
there's one out in his property.
And there's one at the church, the Catholic Church on Game Bird.
Correct.
So
Correct.
I did my homework, yes.
So just basically with the information that was shared with me back last January, they did bring to our attention that we are starting to see a lot more occurrences where we're exceeding that 24-hour limit, and which just kind of brought back to light the need to refocus a bit on mainly best practices when it comes to trying to control the dust. Back in 2012, there was an MOU that was entered with Nye County and NDEP, as you had mentioned earlier. In that, there was a bunch of solutions that came up between the group to try to combat the dust. A lot of it included chip sealing a lot of the gravel roads or dirt roads that we had around town. There was a huge effort with that. We did also work very closely with NDEP at that point in an enforcement regard. They had provided some personnel back then to help help with the construction activities and that kind of stuff, to start promoting best practices, which would be the use of water mainly.
Yes.
Anytime you're disturbing the earth.
And I had mentioned to you also when I first came to this, the Pahrump Valley, I had told the construction company that built my house on my acre and 1.21 acres, not to disturb anything extra except what was needed for building the house, because I knew the natural vegetation was there to keep the dust down, and also when you're turning the soil over, you're disturbing the nitrogen, and it makes it easier for newer weeds to come in.
True.
So my wife says that those weeds look really bad. I says, but they're natural and they're serving a
And
purpose.
they're green.
Yes,
Generally.
yes. But that's one of the things that I came into this the area here knowing prior. So I don't know if people are not doing that. If they're with the new people building homes, do the construction companies clear cut if they want them to?
Yeah, I mean, that is an issue, especially on, I'm going to say, less than an acre. A lot of those properties, will get a house built, 2,500 square foot, a driveway to it, maybe a well put in. But they do end up clearing the whole entire acre, of all the native vegetation, which is generally just weeds. But by doing that, it does break that crust that's on the earth, and hence when the wind comes around, it picks it up and carries it off.
Yes.
So that is a big issue.
So what are we going to be doing about this?
So the main thing, what we've kind of started is just a campaign to re-educate people, bring it back to light that dust is an issue. There was some comments made during the commissioner meeting where we had a presentation. We do live in the desert. That's pretty much a given fact. We all know where we live, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing that can be done to at least try to help with that situation. And that's the campaign we're trying to get out right now, is just to put it back in the forefront of people's minds that, when you do see a plume of dust coming from an activity you're doing or an activity you're observing on another piece of property,
Yes.
Dust particles are very small, and you're breathing it.
Right.
So, but there's some simple measures that can be taken that will help mitigate that.
And we have a large portion of our population are elderly, like myself. I have a paralyzed diaphragm. I only have one lung that works properly, so I am critical of that. Although it go to Burning Man, so never mind.
Dust then.
Yes. So here are some of the impacts of short-term acute exposure: coughing, shortness of breath, tightness of the chest, irritation in the eyes, irregular heartbeat, And long-term chronic exposure gives you reduced lung function, development of respiratory disease in kids, aggravation of existing heart and lung diseases, asthma, premature death. Oh, I don't want to keep reading that. But that's what this leads up to if the dust keeps up and we keep breathing it. So this is a serious issue as far as I'm concerned. And I know you're trying to address it too. But everyone has to buy into it once again.
Yes.
Starting from the commissioners all the way down to advisory groups, which I'm on one for the town, and the general populace too. So
Very true.
how are we going to do that?
Well,
You've got me. I bought in already.
the big thing I think right now is just re-educating people. A lot of us take things for granted. When we're out mowing our tumbleweeds, for instance, on our lot, that there's a lot of dust. It agitates you while you're doing it, but you got to think that dust doesn't just fall right back down where it came from. That dust is going to migrate, and it does cause a lot of health issues for other people. Another big thing is we do have a dust permit program. If you're going to clear more than a half acre of land, you are required to get a dust permit. You do obtain that at the planning department. Okay. You can pull those applications offline on the Nye County website. Even for disturbances less than a half acre, we do have what we call a dust control acknowledgement form that goes with any zoning review. Basically, when there's new construction involved, that is just more or less an acknowledgement that you do agree that you will abide by our code that we have in Title 15 and use best practices.
And you have a compliance officer, right?
We do.
Because I took a picture of your compliance pickup truck, and let's show that. There you go. So if you see that coming to your house, you did something bad with the dust. But anyway, did we show the picture of the dust, what it looks like on 160? Let's show that. This is what you're driving into that, close your windows, or close your windows in your vehicle. This is the problem we have with the disturbed soils here in Pahrump. So this is what we have to mitigate. We find out that that's happening because we have the monitors going 24/7 all around the valley. So in closing, what would you like to say?
I would just like to say, for more information, please go to the Nye County website, go to the Planning Department tab, and there is an air quality section within there that gives you all the information, what's in our code, explains best practices, and what's required by Nye County Code.
All right, thank you, Brett. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.